Hello and welcome to the show. Now, upgrading cars for racing in various classes is an incredibly important part of the Forza Motorsport games. However, there is an option to let the game itself quick upgrade the car for you, and it gives you a selection of parts to try and make it to the top of a class. And we thought it'd be fun to go racing with these cars built by the game that we have never driven. We have no idea quite what parts the game is going to have put on the cars. Our first race would go to the Road Atlanta circuit. I went for a Jaguar E-Type. This was for D-Class cars. I figured the E-Type was a nice, safe bet for this. I was hoping, I had decent power, 300 odd horsepower, and I was hoping that we would have some decent grip in the car. A Land Rover got an absolutely fantastic start, making up a number of positions. I had quite a long first gear. My Jaguar didn't get off the line particularly well. There were a couple of other cars as well that were complaining of similar problems, or with cars just not wanting to launch. I was a Corvette all over the back of me on this opening lap, trying to find a way past. The Land Rover was looking to make a move up into second place around the outside of a Falcon. They almost make it 3 wide as they're going through this very, very fast corner. The Jag had plenty of straight line speed though. I was pleased with the straight line speed that I got in this E-Type as we run down towards the chicane for the first time. Had a sniff up the inside of the Land Rover, lots of 2 wide action down here. However, couldn't quite get far enough alongside. Land Rover forces me out wide on the exit, couldn't quite get the move done, and we've still got this 6-way battle for the lead after the opening lap as we run around the final corner. Again, these are cars none of us have ever driven before, so no one was quite sure what they were going to have performance-wise, grip-wise, and so on as we came around that very, very quick final corner. The Land Rover and Falcon up ahead got together. I tried to carry speed but just ended up in the back of the Falcon there, so I was slowed down coming up the hill. Corvette tries to go alongside me. The Renault 5 makes it 3 wide and the Renault sweeps around the pair of us and then promptly gets the Falcon as well. 3 cars in one move. A fantastic, incredible overtake from the Renault there to get past all of us. It all started with the Defender and the Falcon getting a little bit together. I still couldn't find a way past the Ford as I tried to get to the inside of the long corner, but I couldn't quite get the Jag there. The Land Rover was looking at getting past the leading Firebird. It was all going on in this race, and as I said, despite the random nature of the vehicles, the racing was incredibly close on these opening laps. Another big group of cars further back, a Scion, Lamborghini Yalpa, another Firebird, a slightly newer Firebird. There's a Monaro behind this group as they all run down the back stretch here. And of course, all the cars had their different strengths, their different weaknesses. The Holden, very, very quick car in a straight line, was getting up the inside of the Lamborghini, would get the pass done. The Pontiac here trying to go around the Scion and successfully does so. The Holden's out a little bit on the grass. There were certainly some cars that were struggling for straight line speed, some of the cars that were faring much better down the back straight, and of course those that were faring much better through the corners. And well, with the random nature of things, we did have some peculiar vehicles doing quite well. The Peugeot was currently cruising around relatively high up the order. We did see a few accidents in the early stages. A few cars ended up, especially in the tyre bundles at the final corner early on, a few cars dropped out with accidents and shunts through there because, again, no one was quite sure what they were getting, and were pushing things a little bit too hard or outbraking themselves into the chicane. This Peugeot, as you see, gets very, very close to the tyre bundles, just about gets away with it there. For me, I was holding station in 3rd place. I'd taken a couple of laps just to sort of get used to the Jaguar. The Land Rover had made a mistake coming down the hill and dropped to 4th. I had been a little bit cautious on the opening laps just to kind of feel out where the Jaguar was. Once I got the hang of it though and started pushing, I quickly reeled in the Renault 5 and was looking to find a place to make a move. Thought about having a go up the inside into the final corner, but the Renault 5 much better through the turns than the E-Type, though runs a little too much on the curb on the inside. I was planning to get to the inside down towards turn 1, kind of confirmed what I was going to do the second the Renault 5 got big sideways moment, made things relatively straightforward for the E-Type to get up the inside. The Renault thought about trying to come back, and while it could carry good corner speed, once I got the hang of the Jag, it was just that little bit faster over the course of the lap. Renault got close, but I think he may have clipped the grass or clipped the curb, trying to go around the outside again and couldn't quite make it. Further back, the field was starting to spread out. Again, once people kind of learned the limits of their cars, once they learned what they could do, then the field did spread out a little bit more. Still, though, plenty of close action in this one. This time, Monaro was trying his best to fend off a Pontiac. The Pontiac getting to the inside around this really very, very long corner, but the Firebird had no response for the Holden when it came to the straight line speed out of the corner down towards this chicane. The chicane, a great place for getting overtakes done, but if you're struggling for straight line speed, then yeah, you're always just that little bit too far back. You saw up ahead, the Defender was back to fighting for third place with that Renault 5. We now run back down towards the incredibly fast final corner, and again, the Firebird is faster through this section, but he's just out of range. Ignore the slightly lagged out Ferrari on the start-finish line there, just the ghost cars of Forza replays. And again, by the time we get down towards turn 1, the Holden is a little too far out of range for the Firebird. The Firebird, though, very, very quick through the first quarter, gets a great run off of the turn and goes for the Brave around the top of the hill, goes for the outside. The Holden can't quite take as much speed as the Firebird. The Pontiac would make the move stick and would manage to make just that little bit of a gap as they come running down the hill, could just stretch away out of the grasp of the Holden. That's what you've really got to do when you've got that handling car. You've got to make the most of whatever opportunities you can to get past. At the front, and it was the Falcon that was leading the way. I had closed up in the last couple of laps, but ran out of time to really do anything about the Ford. Very evenly matched cars between the two of us. I think my Jag perhaps just slightly the better of the two, but yeah, I ran out of laps to do anything about getting past the Ford, so the Falcon would take the victory from my Jaguar in second, and I believe the Defender was in third. Pretty good showing from the Land Rover there to keep such a high position. Again, randomly built Defender as well, so that's pretty good going. Race number 2 was into C-Class as we all panicked to try and avoid a Jaguar D-Type that really didn't get off the line at the Sebring Club Circuit in the pouring rain. I'd gone for the Lancia 037 in this one. I was a little bit scared about this car. Never quite sure what you're going to get with a Lancia. The 037 is normally a pretty decent vehicle, though. In the rain, however, four-wheel drive can often be very, very helpful, as I was following a Jeep Wagoneer, and the Lancia hated the puddle of doom. Many, many issues befell the 037. Going across that puddle, had to be really very, very careful. You saw a few cars in the background as well having issues. Again, you know, we have no idea what to expect from these cars. A lot of guesswork went into this opening lap. I was still, though, on the back of the Wagoneer, trying to find a place to get an overtake done. Had a dive up the inside, but of course that Jeep four-wheel drive gets it off of the corner very, very well, but he is still stuck on the outside heading down towards the next turn, and the brakes on the 037 were very, very good. Probably one of the best cars here getting stopped. Certainly the front cars at the moment, it got stopped really well, so I could dive it up the inside of the Wagoneer, and even with his four-wheel drive, couldn't quite do anything about the Lancia. Another car that was making good progress through the field, the Dodge Dart with some massive, I assume, again, we don't know how Forza quite upgrades these cars. Assuming this Dart has some decent sized rear tyres, certainly the looks of it compared to some of the other vehicles, I know that they can have some huge tyres, and it looks like it was running decent size, was giving it plenty of traction out of the corners, as it was finding ways past pretty much everybody that it was coming up against. Up next ahead of it, a Mitsubishi GTO, again another four-wheel drive car. Got past the Subaru, where the Subaru fell off the road. If you could sort of keep up with the four-wheel drives as they sort of launched off of a corner, you knew you were doing pretty damn well. The Dart going for the inside, same place I tried on the Wagoneer, with fairly similar results. A little bit of bumping between the pair of them as they get a little caught on the curb, but a similar result. The GTO keeps it around the outside, but is asking a little bit too much through the next corner. The GTO does a very, very good job, though, of getting it around. The Dart has that fantastic acceleration off the corner. Still there side by side. The GTO a little squeezed on the inside through the next corner and does make the move stick. Subaru is now coming back into the equation, and Alpine is joining in as well at the back, but they're no match for the Dart's straight line speed as they leave that final corner. The Dart can just bugger off down the straight. The Subaru was quicker than the GTO as well, as they all come down towards this first corner. Subaru's up the inside. GTO's going to get hung out to dry on the outside. Ferrari had a little bit of an outbreaky moment into that first corner, and he was now the next victim of the Dodge. Yeah, trying to get the judging the braking in the opening couple of laps down towards turn 1, especially when you're at full racing speeds. That was a little bit of fun at the front, and it was a Golf that was leading the way. I was trying to put pressure on this Golf, but was having some issues. A 205 did lead briefly. I think he had an off at some point, as you can see in the background, would fall to third. Trying to find a way past this Volkswagen was quite a pain. The Lancia was a great car, honestly, a fantastic car here. The problem was the Golf's four-wheel drive traction was so much that he could just put the car wherever he wanted. Even when I could get alongside down here, he could just put the car wherever he wanted and boot it out of the corners, and the Lancia just couldn't quite match it. I had very good brakes down into turn 1. I was making up a lot of time down into turn 1, but if the Golf defended, I had no answer to his traction. Our straight line speeds were fairly similar, and I had to be careful at this stage. The Wagoneer was right there behind us. The 205 not that far back either, so couldn't afford to make too many silly dives. Again, down towards turn 1, Golf defends. I tried to do a cutback, but there's that four-wheel drive from the Volkswagen that launches it down towards the next corner. I was kind of hoping the 205 was going to slow the Wagoneer down. Wasn't really quite happening at this moment. I was so close at the back of the Golf, couldn't actually see where I was going down here. Took a little bit of a guess, got things wrong. Across the Puddle of Doom as the 205 has a big spin. I save things a bit better in the Lancia, but that gives the Golf a bit of breathing space. Wagoneer's now trying to go around the outside of my Lancia. I can just about fend off the Jeep with my superior acceleration, but yeah, being that close behind the car ahead was a little bit on the scary side, and the Puddle of Doom caught out the Lancia. Did manage to rescue it though. Further back, there was again plenty of action going on between all of this vast array of cars. A Fiesta was leading a Mercedes 190e that was now coming under pressure from a Mustang. The Mercedes looked like a pretty damn good choice of car for the cornering ability. I was expecting the Mustang to come tearing past down this straight, but that wasn't the case. They jumped on the brakes down towards this hairpin. Ferrari was coming to join the party, although Ferrari ran a little bit wide into that first corner. We saw many a car running wide or outbraking themselves a tad down there. The GTO had made a mistake onto that part as well. The Fiesta breezed past that. The Mercedes is getting brave, thought about going side by side with the Ford. They make it through. They're all just about in one piece. The Mercedes still defending on the inside. Mustang trying to find some grip. The Ferrari is now in this group as well. Still they go side by side. Ford on the inside. Puddle down there is quite nasty if you're trying to get passes done, if you're trying to go too wide. And yeah, Ford can't quite make it stick at that moment. Just clips the puddle, slows him down a little bit. But yeah, for such randomly built cars, it was remarkably even, and there was a remarkably large amount of really close racing. The Dart continued to make his progress through the field, catching up to the back of a Plymouth Fury as they go around turn 1. The Dart going for the cutback and getting that fantastic drive off the corner. I mean, you can see the difference in the tyre size there between the Dart and the Fury. The Dodge can just put that power down so much easier than the cars around him, and to get past the Plymouth, even with just a bit wide, a little bit scary, I would imagine, across that Puddle of Doom. Again, further back in the field, we were seeing all sorts of battles going on. Again, we did see a few accidents from people just not quite expecting how their cars drove. You saw 205s didn't fare too well, little bit too twitchy. The MX-5 though gets a very impressive pass around the outside of the Imprezas. The four-wheel drive cars have been doing that all day, just about everybody, but for a rear-wheel drive car to do it to a four-wheel drive one, pretty damn good going. The MX-5 was obviously holding its own there. That's, yeah, not an easy pass to pull off. Another car making its way up through the order. The little Renault Alpine, that was doing a pretty good job as well at carving its way through the field. It was his turn to come up against the Plymouth Fury. Couldn't quite get the move done with the out accelerating before the Puddle of Doom. You can see the size difference between these two vehicles. I'd imagine quite intimidating when you're in the little Renault trying to find a way past that ginormous Plymouth. Couldn't quite do it along this part. He just couldn't get the car far enough alongside to really try anything. Has a big go at the inside down here, but there's not really that much space for him. The Plymouth gets things wrong, runs a tad wide, bounces it across the curb, very nearly ends up in the side of the Renault. They both do an incredible job of keeping the cars not in a huge accident through there. Again, under braking, I'd imagine that was terrifying with the Plymouth right on your bumper, but the Renault gets himself up the order another position. At the front, I had thrown everything at the Volkswagen and just couldn't find a way past. We came on the final lap. I had to spend a few laps catching back up to him after I ran wide at the Puddle of Doom, and I just couldn't make a pass stick anywhere. That traction of the Golf was too much for the Lancia to be able to deal with, both very evenly matched in straight line speed. I had the better brakes, but the traction more than made up for it with the Golf, so I couldn't make a pass stick. He did a great job of defending, didn't put a wheel wrong, and yeah, the Lancia couldn't find a way past, so it would be the Golf that would take victory. My Lancia coming home in second, with the Dart coming in third. It would have been an interesting race if the Dart hadn't started so far back, if it had been at the front running there. Who knows what would have happened. On to our third and final race with these quick upgraded cars. We went to B class next to the Yas Marina circuit. This one, the north layout of the circuit, so a relatively fast track, hence why you'll see a lot of sort of muscle cars and cars that we had hoped at least to be good vehicles as sort of straight line speed cars. The opening lap, as we all sort of filed our way through these first few corners, relatively calm, a little bit, again, there were the odd more mistakes than we've perhaps seen in other races, simply because we didn't know what we had. You know, you're coming under a big braking zone down here with a car you've never driven before. You don't know what the brakes are going to be like. You don't know what grip you're going to have when you go to turn in. As a Wraith has a problem across a curb, spins it around. The Maserati we're following has made it through the chaos so far. It was, yeah, it was really scary coming into the big stops for the first time when you're not quite sure what you're going to have, and especially through some of these fast corners at racing speed where you're not quite sure. You know, you've got a rough idea what you might expect from the car, but you're never quite 100% sure until you try it what you're going to have with these vehicles. Another Dart, this time, of course, up in B class, was fighting with a Daytona. There was a huge pack of cars that were fighting their way on this opening lap. I had the Shelby Cobra. You can just about see it at the back of shot, the one painted like an old World War II fighter plane. Unfortunately, I have a little bit of controller issue in this one early on that kind of scuppered my chances of winning, at least. Straight line speed, of course, at this circuit, very important, as we see the Dart come breezing past just about everything. The Fast and Furious chargers were also very quick. The Dart, though, probably one of the fastest cars besides the Fast and Furious chargers. As we run down towards this big stop, the Wraith can't get stopped. He's run too wide, and we all go around the heavy. Just to see in the background, my controller had an issue and kind of slightly turned off as we went into the braking zone. Not too helpful for anybody involved back there. The Dart managed to make a move stick on the Shelby, getting the pass completed with that phenomenal straight line speed. And this mid-pack really did stay together for a large part of the race. I mean, we often see, you know, twos or threes of cars stay together, but this was a huge group of cars, and these were all sorts of different varying vehicles, and, you know, completely random, or I say randomly upgraded, certainly not specifically upgraded for this track, and they were all running really close together. It was pretty solidly too wide through the chicane there, with cars bumping their way across the curb. This Nissan tries to get to the inside of the Aston Martin, does successfully get the pass done, actually gets a really good run off the turn alongside the Rolls Royce. But then comes the straight line speed of the cars. This one was holding its own, though, against the Wraith. I was surprised. Again, it's another case I was expecting the Wraith to just come breezing past the 370Z. It's actually doing really well for straight line speed, keeping up. The Jag wasn't really pulling away. Eventually, the Wraith does just about get past. Nissan was a little bit early on the brakes. Again, you know, everyone's still learning their cars. Weren't quite sure. And the Wraith and the Aston Martin run a little bit wide. The Nissan's stuck with a Buick. The Holden's getting involved as well. It's all very crowded. Daytona is coming to join as the Holden's out wide at the final corner. The Nissan now coming to join up with the fun. And this carried on for quite a large number of laps. Someone went for a Shelby Raptor, was trying to hold their own with one of these. Of course, you do get the advantage of the four-wheel drive. You can boot it out of all of the corners, and this thing had some fairly decent straight-line speed. It actually wasn't that bad under braking either, which surprised me. I thought it would be awful trying to get this thing stopped, but it was doing fairly well with the big stops. Of course, it is going to struggle through the corners compared to some of the better handling of the vehicles, and it's keeping up with the Jag. The Buick was a very, very fast car. You see in the background the GSX, that was very, very fast in a straight line. BMW running wide at the hairpin, not what you want to be doing, especially not when there's a Shelby Raptor about. Shelby thinks about going around the outside, not really in the position. BMW runs too wide through that final corner, is going to get outmaneuvered by a Raptor. Not very often that you say that, but there you go. Again, we come down towards turn wide. You can still see the huge train of cars. Yes, it did start to get a little bit more spread out, but certainly not by a huge amount. Often we see races a lot more spread out than this. So things went quite badly wrong for me. As I said, I got turned around on lap 1, had a controller problem on lap 2, which dropped me well down the order. I did get it working again pretty quickly though, so I could rejoin the fight. My Cobra was phenomenally fast around this track. It was a really very good quick upgrade B-class car, and it wasn't long before I caught up to this really rather large battling group. My first victim, Nissan Skyline, trying to find a way past into the chicane, couldn't quite do it. Skyline ran wide on the exit though, across the curb, leaves me to go around the outside at the hairpin. Couldn't quite do it, didn't quite have the grip, and of course the Skyline has the traction, being four-wheel drive, but doesn't have the speed as I go breezing past it under acceleration. Up next, the 370Z. We saw it was a pretty decent car for straight line speed, but is no real match for the Shelby Cobra as I'm powering along up towards the back of the Holden Commodore. But then we've got to get under brakes, make sure I can get the Cobra stopped. The Commodore runs wide, busy in his battle with the Daytona. That's all I need as an invitation to get up alongside as we go around the final turn. I tried to sweep around the outside. I don't think the Commodore quite realised where I was. Had to take a little bit to the curves. 3 places in that lap. Up next, I was spying the back of a Daytona. It was a phenomenal couple of laps for my Cobra. Just everything I was catching didn't really stand a chance against this car. Really very good car, and it especially helped when they were all busy fighting one another as the Wraith was trying to find a way back past the Daytona. They're both understeering wide. I'm going to launch my car up alongside. And this is not the easiest of tracks to overtake at sometimes. There are a couple of big stops that are good overtaking positions, but elsewhere, not necessarily. But I go around the outside of the Rolls Royce to get another position onto this lap, and now we're coming to the really rather large straight, and we saw how good the Cobra was last time out as we all leave the hairpin pretty much together. I get a great run on the BMW. The Dodge can't really do too much either about the straight line speed of either of our cars. In fact, again, we're expecting the Daytona to come breezing past the BMW, but that was not quite the case. Up ahead, Aston Martin was my next target. The Buick was still further up the road. You saw it was relatively close as we left the hairpin. That Buick was so monstrously fast in a straight line though. One of the few things that was considerably quicker than the Cobra as we run around this final corner, and then I'm right back there on the bumper of the Aston Martin. I choose to avoid the curb over there. You're never quite sure what cars are going to do, how they're going to behave when you hit a curb hard. Sometimes, some cars, certainly, when you'll hit them, it spin the car out almost instantly. Slightly afraid that was going to be a case with the Cobra. Probably wouldn't have been. But, yeah, we're slightly worried about that one. Shelby gets a big bounce across the curb. Aston Martin is now trying to find a way past the Raptor. I'm going to take my opportunity when I can, getting up the inside, getting alongside the Aston Martin as we run down towards the chicane. And again, I'm alongside another car into this corner. Tried to go around the outside of the Shelby, almost make it stick. It's the inside for the next corner, but couldn't quite do it. Now it's towards the hairpin. I know I've got a decent car here. Dive up the inside of the Raptor, up the inside of the Buick as well, but no match for the GSX's straight line speed. However, would get past the Raptor as well. The Raptor held its own, certainly, for acceleration down here, but couldn't quite keep up with the Cobra. A busy time, a very, very busy time for me in those couple of laps. Further back, some cars, again, as I said with the previous races, you know, some cars had the odd accidents from, you know, missing braking points, or I think there may have been a bit of lag from time to time. But, yeah, a few vehicles had to take a tour through the pit lane. Didn't stop them from having their own little battle going on between the BMW and Jaguar here. Jaguar with a little bit more of the straight line speed as they run down towards the hairpin. Jag gets himself to the inside, no matter, for the BMW that was that bit better through the corners, right around the outside at the hairpin. Not very often a car holds it on the outside through that corner. You do often see cutbacks working there, but yeah, pretty damn good going from the Z4 there to hold that position. At the front, it was a much more lonely race. We saw a huge amount of action going on in the mid-pack. The leaders, though, kind of cleared all of the action and spread out and kind of stayed relatively spread out. It was a Holden that would go on to take victory. I think it was an Audi A4, RS4, something that was going to come in second. You just about can see it in the background. Would have loved to have seen what my Cobra could have done against these guys had I not had a few technical problems. But yeah, the Holden, very, very quick car here, was pretty unmatched by the rest of the field. The Buick was to make the most spectacular of last lap battles. This thing with such monstrous straight line speed was fighting with a Lexus as we come down towards the hairpin, but couldn't quite get the car stopped and was certainly assisted along a little bit by said Lexus as we run around the final turn. The Buick, though, was of course struggling quite a lot through the corners, would just about manage to hold on to the position. The Lexus tried. I very nearly got the Lexus on the line as well. Yeah, it was certainly an exciting race at Yas Marina. I had sort of a period of a couple of laps where I made up so many positions with the Cobra. It was a fantastic car in that particular race, very well suited to the track, and yeah, made a large number of overtakes. It was a lot of fun, actually. It's quick upgrade racing. There were a few accidents from just inexperience with the cars, but on the whole, it produced some really rather good fun racing with these sort of vehicles. So yeah, I highly recommend you give it a go. The cars it can come up with are rather interesting, but the racing is great fun. Anyway, that is it from me. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.